two quick questions here with regards to the accountability frontier. And I just was this morning reading a tweet from the U.S. Senate Foreign Relations Committee in the United States of America, and it said, the person who chairs the committee said, "I'm saddened to learn that Americans and Kenyan lives were lost during the heinous terrorist attack on the Kenya-U.S. base early yesterday morning. The U.S.-Kenya partnership remains strong in the fight against al-shabaab and global terrorism." We never heard a statement from the Kenya Defense Forces with regards to the casualties that were caused, but statement in how they repulsed the attack. Number two, is it perhaps one that may throw lessons the way of the security agencies in the country in terms of learning what has happened in the past, and from that ensure that you come up with measures to ensure you foil attacks that might target soft civilian gathering points, especially places of worship and public gatherings?
That goes without saying, Ayub. We have to improve our tactics. We have to improve our response. I saw a tweet by the IG yesterday asking anyone that sees anything or any suspicious activity or attack to utilize 999, a response emergency number which was not working until the other day when we raised the issue. I remember specifically raising the issue and my colleague Okia Mtata moving to court to have that response number activated, as well as number 112. So that the response, the equipping, the tactics. I saw some patrols yesterday that unfortunately make it look a bit like a police state, but they're quite necessary. If you remember also I did some work around security some years back. We had an attack one time, I think it was in Kapedo, where officers were killed on patrol. And if you look at the design information, without going into specifics, they would get into a pickup truck and then they face each other, what you call six-a-side. But in truth, what needed to do is that needed to be inverted the other way, so that they're sitting with their backs to each other and their weapons pointed outwards. Now, these are small, minor details, because sometimes you face each other, then you can't even see where the attack is coming from. You understand? So those are the basics that need to be recalibrated, as well as increasing awareness of the public. But also, finally, which you make the point, I think it's very important, and there's a program that we're trying to work on with Professor Alex Awiti at the Aga Khan University. You can see that our public communications protocol is always hesitant, is always behind schedule. So the State Department has issued this confidently, quickly, expeditiously, forthrightly, but the KDF are really not sure, should they say something? Should they acknowledge there was an attack? So there's a balance, Ayub, between how you communicate for credibility. Do you deny? Is it the truth? How deep should you? So there's that whole unexplored area, but there are things that were put in place that can very much suitably, address that as far as government communications goes. Because many times also, if you want a Kenyan to not believe something, then have government say it. The impulse is, government is saying, so you ni uongo. So those are the kind of huge challenges that we as communications professionals, etc., are trying to change. And while we're at that, allow me to just say this, Linda, the last thing. I've looked at international media coverage, and I don't know that the classification or the description of Qasem Soleimani as an assassination, I don't know if that's the right way to go. Martin Luther King was assassinated. Pio Gama Pinto was assassinated. Tom Mboya was assassinated. Qasem Soleimani did some decent things, for example, fighting ISIS. But you see, the intelligence shows that he was the one supplying armor-piercing detonators and bombs and whatnot that were used to fight the U.S. forces during the... You see, after the Iraq War of 2003, the war now began in what they called... there was an insurrection. That is now really when the war began, because they didn't face the Americans head-on. they then did an insurgency, okay? And this is the guy who was supplying that kind of thing. And so to give an order to take him out, an order given by a president, I'm not the one to say, Linda, that it's justified, but an order given by a president on the leader of a militia does not amount to an assassination.
Okay.
An assassination is of a credible person, a cabinet secretary, a head of state, etc. And so I've noted with concern, you know, this discussion and classification of this, because also we don't want to confer martyrdom status to him and therefore justify their actions, which is kind of what is going on now, specifically in Iran and across much of the Middle East as we speak. Yeah. So I have a bit of a concern around that. Yes.
All right.
Okay. And he was, of course, a former ally of the United States.
It's in fact, allow me to say, Michael, maybe it's like saying, would you say Saddam Hussein was assassinated? Sorry, not Saddam Hussein. Osama bin Laden. Would you say Osama bin Laden was assassinated? Osama bin Laden was taken out.
Yes.
He was eliminated because
Yes.
there's a lot of blood on his, there's a lot of allegations and credible intelligence showing that he had killed innocent civilians, that he was behind 9/11.
Yes.
Okay, so the same thing here with Qasem Soleimani is that a lot of, for example, the attack at the Cafe Milano in Washington,
Yes,
the attempt against Saudi Ambassador Adel Al-Jubeir in 2011 that was foiled, this was specifically linked through tracking, phone signals, messaging, communications, etc., to Soleimani.